Okay.
Oh, dude, we're fucking live up in this bitch.
Jared. Hello, I'm Matt Bergman, and you were listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians podcast episode. What episode is it, Kyle? You did the board.
128.
It's probably 128.
Oh, okay. So you just kind of dropped the ball there. So it's episode 128, and so tonight I've got Jared Schneiderman here.
What's up, man?
We've got Kyle Wagner. He did the board
With the wrong episode number on the board.
Dude. We've got Philip Dassing's back.
Hey, what's up?
And then we got fucking Ryan Riot. And
Hello.
He brought shades.
He's wearing shades inside.
Hell yeah, dude.
Dude, throw shade all over the place.
Yeah, man. So I don't know. So Kyle, I saw earlier on Facebook you were doing a bit of activism today.
Yeah, I went to the Essex Day Festival representing the Libertarian Party. I was able to get a bunch of tables and a canopy, some signs, and some literature from an old storage shed that the state has had, or the state party has had, kind of locked up for a few years now. They just haven't had the people or the resources to do fairs. So I pulled all the old stuff out. Some of it didn't really look all that fresh, but it is what it is. And I sat out there for, 8 hours all day talking to people that walked by that wanted to learn about libertarianism, that wanted to sign up. I got a bunch of sign-ups and handed out a bunch of literature, some books, and it was a good day.
Sounds good, man.
Thanks.
Do you have a lot of people coming up to the table?
Yeah,
expressing their interest?
I'm kind of passive. I'm not the one to be standing out there grabbing people as they walk by. Let me tell you, well, people
violating the nap.
I got some food, and I was walking back to my booth, and the guy from the Baptist church or whatever was like, "Hey, let me tell you about the Baptist church." So I listened to him and took some literature so I could leave, and then that was it.
Yeah,
But so you can be really proactive with it. I just sat there and was like, let people come up that were interested, and a lot of people were like, no, I've never heard. I would say, have you heard of libertarianism or the Libertarian Party? And most people said no, and then I was like, or they would be like, not really, and then I gave them sort of the elevator speech for what it is, and of course I explain it as minarchism. I'm like, it's a limited government philosophy with the maximum personal freedom. We believe in civil liberties. We want to end the war on drugs. We want to bring the troops home and end the wars. We believe in low taxes, small government, low public debt.
Blowjob permits.
So that's how I explain it to people. And I'm not out there screaming taxation is theft at people or saying fuck the cops or whatever. And in fact, an officer did ask me to take a picture of him and his family, which, I happily did. So it was nice. But, I'm just thinking, how would that have gone over somewhere where they were saying, F the cops, which is somebody, when I posted about it on Facebook, somebody in the comments was like, I do the same thing for the LP at college campuses, and I scream into a megaphone, taxation is theft, and F the cops. And he's like, I get, some good response for that. And I'm just like, all right, man, I guess, but
if he's on a college campus, though, he might get a good response.
Yeah, maybe from some more rebellious kids or something, but you're not going to be able to do that. I mean,
you probably get
thrown out of the event. It's a family event. There's all kinds of kids walking by and everything like that, and I had veterans coming up to me and talking to me. One guy was a Vietnam War vet, and so the war talk really resonates with those people, and I was always bringing up the occupation in Afghanistan, how long that's been going on, and people were really receptive to that. I'm like, we used to end wars, and now they just drag on forever. What are we doing? And I didn't really get anybody disagreeing with me or challenging me on anything. Everybody was kind of very receptive and willing to learn. And I got a few emails that I think people that could be activists that might come out and actually help. So it's a good day.
Cool, dude. So some Kyle Wagner recruits.
Yeah, hopefully.
Are you going to get him to join the meme page?
The main page?
The meme page.
Oh, the meme page.
Yeah, Kyle Wagner's Dank Meme Collective, your Facebook group that you admin.
It's I don't admin any of those pages.
That's not how that works?
I didn't create any of them. It's never been about me. It's always been about the philosophy and spreading the philosophy and getting the philosophy right, which is one of the ways I've gotten notoriety is just attacking the anarcho-capitalism and promoting minarchism as the correct philosophy.
So, yeah, I don't know. So, I guess there's the big thing this week was probably Ted Cruz getting caught spanking it on what was it, Pornhub?
Reality Kings.
Oh, okay, Reality King.
Well, we're not sure exactly.
Like stepmother, like
No, it was.
It was stepmom stuff.
It was a Twitter account called Sexual something with like 2 L's.
I
it's
just
important that
super
you get
weird.
across that it was like an incest stepmom.
Yeah,
it was definitely an incest thing.
he was on his public account, and some people saw his likes. You see on what you like on Twitter now.
Which I always wonder, like, who are these people that are just going through everybody's...
I mean, when you got millions of followers, people at least one of them's gonna check.
Someone's unemployed, sitting at home, just like, I'll just go through this fucking politician's shit and see if I get something.
It can be someone who's got their whole life set out, but like they're checking up.
It could be like Dan Bilzerian just sitting there on a fucking yacht, just looking at Ted Cruz.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be some loser. It could be anyone.
I mean, I think
you.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that though.
Well, that's your problem.
Yeah, but didn't it supposedly come out that they were claiming that it was some intern that did it?
Yeah, of course.
I heard it was hacked. Something was that original story was.
I saw the interview today.
Well, no, they claimed that it was an intern, right?
Okay,
they didn't say intern. They just said it happened internally. Oh, no, I watched an interview about it today, and I thought it was silly. So.
Man, isn't it like hilarious? Like Donald Trump's like fucking 70 years old and he can manage his own Twitter, but Ted Cruz, how old is he?
Wait, you think Donald Trump can manage his own Twitter account?
Yeah, I mean, well, he does.
I mean, he's not looking at porn on it, but I mean, other than that, he's not doing a great job.
Yeah, he's not liking Pornhub.
Okay, fair enough.
It's basic. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah,
he seems the type to like.
And why would you be on like your own like political like? It's got to be. I mean, I want to believe it's Ted Cruz, but it's probably not Ted Cruz.
Either way, it's still
what. Dude, why, dude? You don't think
his little face? He looks so guilty. Like whenever he's like saying, "Oh, it wasn't me." No,
you don't think Ted Cruz spanks it, dude?
Dude, I grabbing his stuff while he's saying it. Like,
I mean, look, dude. Maybe it's him. Like, I don't know. I wasn't there with him, behind him, like helping him hold it. Like,
I was, and it was him.
All right, well, that's fine. We'll just say it was him.
It's amazing how Trump doesn't seem to have anybody like spell or grammar check his tweets. They just go out to like millions and millions.
Oh, did you
of people.
see Trump's tweet today that he's getting in trouble about?
No, what's it say?
So he posted a GIF or like a video of him. So he retweeted it. It was like the same shit with like that GIF of like the WWE thing when he was like tackling CNN, but it's him hitting a golf hitting a golf ball. And then it hits Hillary Clinton in the back, and it's like that picture where she that movie where she's like falls down, getting into the plane, and it like hits her in the back, and she like fucking falls down.
And CNN had an article. It said that, and it said, "This is why this matters." And I just saw the headline for it, and I just couldn't stop laughing. I didn't check it out, but that was hilarious.
Dude, it's amazing. Like, look, I fucking hate Donald Trump, but like this kind of shit, I love it. I fucking love it, man.
Right? Yeah.
Like that, I like the CNN fucking GIF. Like, I love all that shit. It's great.
Yeah, well, back to Ted Cruz. Okay, so the funniest thing about this whole thing is that it happened on fucking 9/11.
He was jerking off on 9/11, dude.
Yeah.
So were millions of other Americans. I'm sure.
I mean, that's the most American thing you can do, man.
Okay, I mean, well, he got caught on 9/11.
It did happen internally. It was Osama bin Laden, fucking intern.
Like Ted Cruz, wasn't he trying to like impose a war on dildos?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
wait, what?
It was a war on dildos. So he doesn't
like
believe
banning dildos.
He wanted all the dildos for himself.
Sex toys.
Yeah, dude.
He wanted them all reserved for incest porn.
Yeah, like. If the stepmoms can't have them, no one can.
No, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, I don't know.
Well, it's the typical like hypocritical you know, you always hear that story of like the dude who's like railing on like gay marriage or like gay rights or whatever, and then it turns out he's like fucking gay people in a fucking gas station bathroom, and you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming at all. I mean, I bet you that's what's going on with this guy. He's probably just jerking it like 3 times a day.
Or 4.
Or 4. I mean, 3's normal, but 4.
4? Fucking animal. Oh, man. Damn.
That's cool.
So, I guess the other big story of this week...
Wait, who spelled it like that? Barkley? That's not how you spell Barkley, dude. It's Berkeley.
It is an E. It's just hard to read.
That's not even how you spelled it if that was an E.
I know I missed the EY at the end, and
there's
I
like 2 other
said
E's
that
in there, dude.
I spelled it.
On the mind.
I admit it. I noticed I spelled it wrong at the beginning. I said that.
He did.
And everybody was like, "No big deal. Not going to call you out on air or anything."
Dude,
I was not a party that, dude.
Yeah, dude. I would not promise to not call you out on air.
Yeah. That doesn't sound like Bergman at all, dude.
Doesn't.
And if it does, don't pay attention to it.
Anyway, so yes, tell us about this story. Who's got the deets on this shit?
I just happened to see. I was on vacation last week, and I think that's when it happened. Was last week or something? Where there's a video was posted of a vendor. He was selling. I think it might have been a football game or something. He was selling outside of. I don't remember the outside circumstances of that, but I think his name was Beto. I think that's I don't think he gave his full name, but I said his name was Beto, and he's in the video where 2 police officers are up next to him, and the video starts, and they're taking his money out of his wallet.
Yeah.
I guess that would be civil asset forfeiture.
Yeah, they did submit it to evidence, is what I read in the story.
So, and they said he didn't have
Does that mean
permit.
it's okay, dude?
Well, I think you have to look at whose property he was on and what the rules were for that property. I mean, was he allowed to be selling there or not? You know, was he on public property? Was he on the Berkeley campus? Again, you know,
But isn't the Berkeley
the
campus
rules of
public
property matter. Yeah, and that's where you really get into some confusing issues because, okay, a college campus is public property, but it's not like you can run around naked on there or something like that. Like, it has rules. You know what I mean? All property has rules. So you have to ask yourself who owns that property and what are the rules of that property. And if you're not allowed to sell food there, then you're not allowed to sell food there.
So if it's public property, do you think that you should need a permit?
No, I don't think you should. But, I mean, if that's the rule that they have in place, that's their rule as the property owner. That's their right to make that rule.
Oh, man.
Then it's not really public property, is it?
Well, public property has rules just like private property has rules. All property has rules. You know, there's certain things just because the government administers that property doesn't mean you're free to do whatever you want on it.
Yeah, well,
you know, you can't.
Like in all fairness, like I wouldn't want a hot dog vendor selling shit on my front yard.
Yeah,
you know, just like parking on your front yard and selling hot dogs.
Dude, I would love that. I don't know. But
that would be some bullshit.
Depends
But you know,
if he charged you or not.
but you know, like
yeah, if I get free hot dogs out of it, I'm down, dude.
but like at a state building, you know, I don't care, you know.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been my rule, but it's the university's right to make that rule and to say only authorized vendors or approved vendors are allowed here or what have you. And it's the government's rule to make that right to make that rule. They do have like food safety requirements and stuff like that. It's all about property rights, you know. I mean, it's not like they went into the guy's restaurant.
It sounds like it's all about a permit, dude.
Yeah,
this
sounds actually very pro-state. Like I thought this was a libertarian podcast.
Well,
like,
I mean, I do think, you know, that they have a right to set restrictions for who's allowed to sell food on their premises.
it's hardcore.
Yeah, and one of the police officers was saying, I'm doing this for your guys' safety or something along those lines. But, I mean, you can still get E. coli from places that do have permits. So I don't like that argument. I'm like, well, it's for safety reasons. It's because you can still get food poisoning from any other establishment, whether they have a permit or not.
Yeah, totally.
We'll talk about just physical presence. You know, are you allowed to set up shop there? Are you allowed to be there? Do you have a ticket to this game? Okay, let's say the stadium is public property, but it's not open access to the public. You have to buy a ticket to access the field, to access the seats.
I doubt the guy could get into the game without a ticket.
Well, the point is, you know, it's public property, and sometimes your physical presence isn't even allowed. Sometimes you need to pay for a ticket. You know?
I mean, sometimes you just need to sell things to make money to live, dude.
Well, I know that, but, you know, in that particular incident...
It just seems like you're, like, denying him the right to life, dude. Offer this fucking status permit.
It's not that he couldn't open a business or sell food. I mean,
or get a blowjob.
He could have gone through... and again, I haven't really studied it enough to say whether he should or should not even have a permit. I don't know what kind of permit it was, Was it just a generic street vendor permit? Was it a permit to actually sell at that spot, at that location? I don't know those fine details, but whatever it was, he didn't have the proper paperwork.
Yeah, he pretty much had a hot dog
to
cart.
conduct his business in that location.
The cops are really fucking cool, and permits are really rad. Like, I love both those things.
But I think that the greatest part is that someone set up someone set up a GoFundMe for him, and now they raised over $70,000 for him.
Yeah, no, that definitely had a happy ending.
Yeah.
But it was a sad story that shouldn't have happened. Like, I will say that. Although now I'm sure he's glad it happened, because
Yeah, it sounds like he's going to make out of it, but again, looking at it from a property rights lens, he broke the rules of that owner.
Yeah, but looking at it from the amount of money that he made, it sounds like the market disagrees with you.
I don't know that I would say they disagree, but certainly a lot of people just gave him money. So good. Good for him.
I would say they disagree.
That doesn't necessarily mean the market disagrees. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people, if you were to take a survey, that say, hey, yeah, the guy broke the rules and he got caught.
They weren't willing to put their money forward.
Who would they give money to? I mean, the guy already got charged.
They could give it to you, Kyle.
I mean, why would they donate money for something like that? And be like,
Kyle, you should have started a GoFundMe, dude.
That's the justice system is already doing its part, which I don't think this is something that would entail jail time or anything like that. He probably just had to move and got a fine.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
Are you sure, though? Are you sure? Maybe you should have got raped for this.
Well, and they took his proceeds from the, illegal sales.
Stole.
Yeah, you would say stole.
This actually sounds very free market, though. Like him just going, setting up his thing. Like that sounds free market.
It does,
that's what
but
libertarians were about, especially on public property. Like you guys don't even believe in public property.
He does.
So,
he does.
I do.
Minarchism is
minarchism. Yeah.
Last time I was here, everyone was an anarchist. So I was like,
I'm a minarchist, and I usually go against the grain on this show because I am, statist, and that annoys the heck out of people. But
it doesn't annoy us.
Well, it's very much like private property works the same way as public property. It has rules, and you have to follow the rules of the owner, whether that's the government or a private owner.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes towards just the argument of like,
I mean,
should there be public property?
Well, and also
like, is public property?
Well,
hold on a second.
Okay. So
I'm not, but
okay. I want to talk about the language that Kyle just used. Okay.
Okay.
So you're saying, public property should have rules because the government's the owner.
I mean, it does have rules.
But I'm just saying, the name public property just kind of would lead one to believe that it's owned by the public.
Yeah. It's not really. It's always administered by a small group that represents the public. It's not possible. It's not possible for all of us collectively to make the judgment call on what you can and can't do on a piece of property. There's be all kinds of conflict. If you say we all own it, what happens when you want to do something there and I want to do something else?
Well, that's called the tragedy of the commons.
Yeah,
well, no, that's not the tragedy of the commons. The tragedy of the commons is different. That's when people abuse public property because they don't bear the personal cost of that damage. That's what the tragedy of the commons is.
Right, but the inverse of that is if you don't set the rules like you're talking about, which automatically you're requiring this external body to come in and administrate. I mean, I think we're in agreement on this, but that's the problem that I see with public property is it's like, okay, it's not really owned by everybody. It's owned by the government, who allegedly represents the public.
So it's a misleading name?
It's a social body.
Right, but calling it like public property, it does kind of seem like a misnomer.
That own it.
You could call it government property if it makes you feel better. But I mean,
it doesn't make me feel better.
The point I'm making to you is that you're going to have, if you have shared property, there's going to be conflicts in how that property is going to be used.
Right.
Maybe you want to build a farm there. Maybe you want to build a farm there. Maybe I want to build a factory there. So. Right. That's a conflict.
Which is why you have things like homesteading and you have things like the market.
Well, we have the law. the law says this is
but the law is basically the government came in and they had the most guns and they said, well, this is our property now, and
but the way you say it though, it's just the government operating on its own as some sort of like a thieving gang, when in reality it's the community that's
you're saying two things here. You're saying two things actually. You're saying two things. You're saying on one hand this is the community coming together and saying this, but then you're also saying like, oh no, it's not the community. It's like this big everybody. When they said it was the community and the market showing like through their donations to the guy, you said no, that wasn't the case because it's a small group of people. You just seem to be over here and over there.
Well, the community supports the government. That's my point.
Well,
they acknowledge.
Well, but how many people support the government?
It's a majority. It's not 100%. Obviously, anarchists don't support the government.
Well, when you go through their
wait, how many people voted in the election? It was not over 50.
I think it was like 130 million,
which is less than 50%.
Well, you take out the ones that are ineligible to vote because they're under 18 and felons and things like that, and then it's a significant number of people vote, and even ones that didn't vote doesn't necessarily mean they don't support the government. They just chose not to vote in that election. They're not anarchists.
I'm not saying they're anarchists. I'm just saying they're not necessarily consenting.
How are we really to know one way or the other? I mean, if they didn't vote and they're not vocal about it, then
look at that.
What do we know what they think? We don't know.
Well, we don't know. We're just assuming. Yeah. We can assume either way. And I'm
assuming they're basically politically indifferent or lazy and just don't bother to vote.
I think the response to this is the big takeout for me is the response, because you look at people raised $70,000. I mean, if essentially they're saying this wasn't right, this guy was wronged, and I think permits, in my opinion, especially this, they're bullshit. It's stupid, and they don't serve a purpose. It's just a way to fund government in a lot of these things, and I think people recognize that without maybe they don't realize that they are libertarian, but they believe in certain libertarian ideals, and I think that's the because I guarantee you it wasn't all libertarians or people liberty-minded who donated to this guy. It was probably common people were like, that's fucked up. Like,
there's certain things you can look at and just go,
so that was my take
bad.
on it.
This is a bad thing that happened to someone.
No doubt. I mean, there are a lot of libertarians who just don't know it yet. Probably like the people that gave to that dude.
Yeah.
So Matt, you said you wouldn't be happy about somebody opening a food vendor place on your front yard without your permission. So why doesn't that mentality extend to someone's larger property like a university campus? Why is their campus fair game but your front yard is sacred?
Well, dude, if this university campus is funded by extortion, I mean, I don't give a shit if
tuition.
If the homeless dudes shit on the front porch.
It's also tuition based.
I have about that much respect for it, dude.
Yeah, but how much of that tuition is stolen government money?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, a lot of the tuition is done put through as student debt, where the students actually are on the hook for it. So
they're on the hook for it, but it's granted by the government.
It's a mix of public and private funding. So, do you think the fact that they receive some public funding invalidates their right to make judgment calls for their campus?
Yeah, I kind of have like an answer about when you said what's the difference.
Possibly. Yeah.
Possibly?
Yeah.
So property rights only apply when you think they should apply?
Well, you're not really saying the same. You're not talking about the same property rights either.
Not really, dude. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if it's funded by extortion, I'm not really for it.
All right. I mean, somebody has to control that land. Somebody controls that area, so...
No, I'm sure in lieu of the state, in the absence of the state, I'm sure there'd be plenty of ways to educate your kids. And I really think the internet would probably blow up. I think nowadays with capitalism, you can get like computers for very fucking cheap, and your kids could literally be educated by like a fucking computer program that could be mass produced for very cheap. I mean,
without getting into all that shit, I mean, we're just talking about land. I mean, that land could be controlled by anybody.
But also,
it could be sold to the.
There's a difference between like home property, like your home possessions, and like a public space. That is a different thing. Like you're acting like you're like, well, what's the difference between your front lawn and a campus? There are a lot of differences between your front lawn and a campus. No one lives at like that area. Like, okay, yeah, the people who live in the dorm rooms, but like no like home property. It's not a home body. That is.
It's not a residence.
It's a different
residence.
It's a different kind of institution. It's not a residence.
I could also like go into like
college.
the difference between like
Well, I mean, where was this guy though? Like,
so
where's I think it is important to know exactly the situation here, because if he's like literally on like in the middle of the quad in the college campus, like, all right, yes, I can see that, fine. Plus, yeah, I mean, I will,
I don't know those details,
right? But if he's like outside, like, dude, there's people fucking tailgating outside of a college campus.
Yeah,
yeah. That's the problem with public property, is that you run into these weird situations where it's like arbitrary rules, or now you can get the state police involved, whereas like if it was a private residence in Ancapistan, you wouldn't have that option, so it gets tricky.
No, I mean a private university could require permits for food vendors at their games.
Sure,
and they would call some enforcement agency and try to have the guy removed, and then he would call his enforcement agency and they would fight.
Oh.
Well, here, this is funny. I'm reading.
I see what you're trying to do.
I'm reading this.
What do you think would happen?
The school's response was from the UC Berkeley Vice Chancellor Scott Biddy issued a statement reiterating the school's commitment to a climate of tolerance, inclusion, and diversity.
Well, that's the other thing. Like let's put aside all the property rights arguments for a second. Now, let's just talk about how UC Berkeley has been leading the charge of the fucking social justice warriors for the past 2 years. And let alone, here's a guy who's like a fucking probably, or he's some sort of immigrant from I think Mexico.
I don't know.
Some Hispanic country, a minority, but when it comes to their property and their property rights, if you want to call them that,
I do.
Let's grant you that. Now all of a sudden it matters. But when we're talking about the border, not that I'm pro-border, I'm not pro-border, but I'm just Let's be consistent with their position. They want to talk about their rights, to not have this Mexican person selling stuff on their property. But then they're gonna go around and be like, oh, we're the leader in tolerance, and we're gonna ban all these fucking people who say things that we don't agree with and all that shit. Like, what's that all about? That's inconsistency. That's not.
Yeah. It's not surprising that they made it about his racial identity, or that's what they were really concerned about here. They're so fixated on that, and it's like, oh, he was an immigrant. Oh, that changes everything. So whereas to me, that's not even a factor.
I'm just saying they didn't even take that into account.
Oh, they didn't. I thought you were saying they did take that.
No, they did,
because that was the statement they
issued.
Was
after the video was released on the internet.
Yeah,
but I'm saying all right, they didn't. Who called the cop on this guy? Did the cops just act, or was it the administration that called him and said, you got to get this guy off? Then once that whole situation with the economic aspect was taken care of, then they were like, oh, wait, shit, that guy happened to have browner skin than us. Yeah. Therefore, we need to come up with some kind of, fallback plan here so that we don't seem like we're just money-grabbing whores like we really are, So that's the thing I think that's the real story here. We could argue about the philosophical principles, but let's just...
we need to do damage control now, right? It would have been fine if he was a Caucasian man.
Yeah,
right?
if he was a dude with a fucking flat-brimmed hat and some boat shoes on, they wouldn't give a fuck.
No. Changes everything that he's an immigrant.
Right.
But...
So,
I wanted to go touch on Ryan's point real quick. He was saying, he was talking about personal property, and he was like, this is a campus. So do you envision a world with no schools or campuses?
I envision
would it
a
all
world
be
of, those things? Yeah,
they would exist.
Right to education, yeah.
Okay. So the way you were saying it, I was like,
no,
do you think
you said no? I was responding to your point about you were saying, well, you don't want someone selling hot dogs on your front lawn, so why does it make it okay at a campus? They're the exact same thing.
They're similar.
They're not similar at all.
Well,
there's a difference between a personal home and a public, especially when you're involving the state and public property. Like the reason why I really respect, I don't agree with, but I like at least sort of respect the idea of anarcho-capitalism is that they take those ideas to the logical conclusion.
Well, they just I think they removed the. I would disagree. I would disagree with that. But
well, of course, yeah, you're Dominicus. But But like, so I would say even in anarcho-capitalism, there's a difference between and that. But like, especially when you're getting like the state involved and taxation and all those things, there is a difference. Like, you are not producing anything, but like, you're not employing anyone in your home. You're not doing anything in your home, like for the public, but living there. The moment that your place becomes a means of production, that is different. That a state. I'm sorry, I keep touching.
No, you're good, man.
At a place of there's a difference between a place of production and a home. There is a difference.
Do you think there should be no rules on campuses?
I think I'm not. I'm talking about democratically agreed upon rules. That's fine, but I don't think that, like he even said, like, though the market didn't quite agree. Like, that's most people, if you ask them, they would probably say that guy got fucked over.
Are you, as a libertarian socialist, appealing to the market?
No, I'm talking about even if you look at what he says, that is a democratic ideal. I mean, that is very harmless. Donations, that is very harmless.
People giving money to the guy?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, that is like an example that you can like see that people majority would probably agree with that guy as opposed to the cop and the
well, I don't know that it even indicates that. It just indicates that some people gave money, but again, there may be many people that also agree with the law and with the cops that just didn't give money. We can't say that the majority of Americans side with the vendor just based off of $70,000 worth of donations,
because you can't give negative money. Like, you can't be like, I disagree, therefore I'm taking money.
You guys all side with the rule breaker. Did you guys give him money?
No, I didn't.
No, I didn't.
All right, I side with the law, and I didn't give money to the state for this or whatever. I mean, I guess everybody that has an opinion,
we all gave money to the state.
The point is, everybody that has an opinion on this didn't vote with their dollar.
Not voluntarily. That's the only difference.
Not everybody voted with their dollar on this one. That's the point I'm making.
Right.
We didn't all pay.
Well, we all paid, but.
Yeah.
Just not voluntarily paid.
Not voluntarily.
I didn't say that the majority of people. I just said there's a lot of people out there, and it had been hundreds of people, maybe even thousands of people who donated that money to him, which they all agreed in some way or another, whether it was $1's worth or $20, they agreed that he was wrong.
And I don't think that holds up as like, oh, a bunch of people gave money to this thing. That means that most people agree with it. I just mean that might be an indicator in that direction that this might not be the popular opinion. I didn't think this scientifically would hold up or anything like that. I'm just kind of pointing to that as an example of like a lot of people didn't agree with this, and it was probably.
Well, and I mean,
most people don't make $70,000 off of being wronged by cops, but like this example happened to resonate with enough people to where.
Well, you're saying you come to the conclusion of thought and reason of why you believe what you believe, I don't agree because he broke the rules. But most people who would be in your corner, that's their default. Their default is government. Well, yeah, he broke government rules, and I was raised to believe everything the government. I went to public schools, and they taught me all about government and how it's necessary. Where you have come to that conclusion on yourself, I'm sure because you said you weren't,
Yeah, I did have an ANCAP phase.
So people on your side maybe are blind on your side.
Yeah.
So that I mean, in that aspect, that's.
But it's just like that is really just might makes right at that point. Like,
well, I think he violated the property rights of the campus there, right? He wasn't allowed to be there selling the food, so he's a property rights violator.
I don't know. I'm not a believer in property rights. So
I know.
I'm not the right guy to talk to about it. I don't know.
But you have to understand, there's conflicts over land and resources, and this is a way that we sort those conflicts out by dividing up.
His money from
we divide up
just bullying a poor innocent.
We divide up all the land, and then this person gets to say what happens here, and this person gets to say what happens there.
I feel like
and that alleviates the conflict.
This guy, you don't really get to decide very much. Like,
what's that? As a property owner?
I guess as a human being,
you have a small sphere of influence. Like
I'm
Matt,
you're not even like upset that they took from him. Like,
yeah, I'm not. I mean,
that's insane to me because at least that was his property. Like, we're talking about property. Like, yeah, let's talk about that. That was his.
I mean, they were using it as evidence that he committed a crime, I guess.
So, are you a fan of civil asset forfeiture?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but fan's strong. I think
hold on, man.
I definitely think that if criminal activity occurs, that they're going to take the proceeds from that criminal.
Shouldn't there be
activity.
a certain requirement of evidence for taking?
Well, I mean, they caught the guy red-handed.
Okay, let's aside from this guy, I'm just talking now. I'm moving on to the broader topic of civil asset forfeiture.
Yeah,
I mean, do you align with like Rand Paul on this issue? And
I think I'm against the war on drugs. So I really would like to see all of those crimes and all of that property expropriation just done away with, because I don't think that drug sales should be illegal. Mm-hmm. So that would really reduce, I don't know what percentage of it, probably 95% of it,
most of it,
right? Yeah. Probably most of it.
Yeah.
So, they can take your stuff. I mean, that's what happens. Like if you commit a crime and you have you have whatever you used in the commission of the crime and the proceeds, the money you made off of it, they take that.
But there's been cases where people have just been driving and they got pulled over and they had large sums of money on them, like cash on them, and they said, well, this might have been attained through criminal.
Yeah,
the criminal
the
way.
level, like I said, the requirement of the what's the fucking term? The
burden
of proof. Yeah, is just not there.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're driving with large sums of cash. Like,
yeah, that's ridiculous. I don't think they should just be able to take cash for cash's sake.
Right.
And I would really like the law to be changed so that they couldn't even take, drug proceeds or whatever. The war on drugs has actually led to further encroachments on personal liberties because they're like, oh, that might be drug money.
Right.
Or now we have a pretext to search your car because you might have drugs in there.
Yeah.
So it really opened the door for the government to encroach on our
if
civil,
they
on
want
our
to
privacy.
take your bloody knife from you that you just stabbed somebody with, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm okay with that. Like,
okay, so you support civil asset forfeiture in certain circumstances.
I mean, I don't support like
if it's a bloody knife.
Police. I don't support.
Yeah.
But like in the current paradigm, like I can understand that. I can understand that. I can
a
be
bloody-
like, that's reasonable.
Right. A bloody knife is okay
But
to
here's
take.
the thing that they
I
did.
would say that's okay, but I would not say like taking like your car that you were driving
Oh, here's another
on
thing.
the way to a potential drug deal.
No, not even that. There
Or
was a
like the
case-
stacks of cash that you had in your car because you don't want to deal with the fucking banks or whatever your fucking deal is. Like,
So you're not a fan of the war on drugs, but you're a fan of the war on hot dogs. Is that what you're telling the public, the good people out there?
Well, there was once a case of a civil asset forfeiture where the police came. It was at an art gallery, and they were serving alcohol without a permit. So the police in the town, I believe it was in Minnesota, I could be wrong, but they took every car that was in the parking lot.
right, and that's
And
what
they
I mean
took
by like civil asset forfeiture isn't like we're collecting evidence. It's like, well, this whole house might have been involved in this operation, somehow connected. So we're just gonna fucking take the whole thing. Yeah. Like that's what I'm saying is fucked up. Like that needs to change.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
As far as war on hot dogs, I mean, no, and I don't.
Sausages are
I don't
Hot
even
dogs
think.
kill more people than drugs. Like I understand where you're like.
I'm not opposed to hot dog
Heart
sales.
disease is the #1 killer, but
I just look at things through property rights and I say, well, who owns this and were you allowed to be there doing what you were doing? So it's not like, he didn't have permission to be there and he didn't have permission to sell hot dogs at that place and time. That doesn't mean I'm opposed to all hot dog
that really
sales.
does seem just so not libertarian. Like I guess maybe I'm just so used to these guys with like the rigid like anti-state, but like that doesn't.
Yeah, I'm
used to like this like they're.
Kyle's a
public
different guy.
Property, and that makes
yeah.
it,
Well, though
used to cops being
it's
legitimized. Like
I mean,
that.
it makes sense if you extend the concept of property rights to
Actually-
public property.
So they're
it
just
makes
another
sense.
capitalist.
Yeah.
But
And
I just
actually-
don't agree. I
Which
mean,
is what I would say. Like, the state's another capitalist, but like I think that's bad and not good.
well, the state
so.
isn't a capitalist because the state doesn't engage in voluntary transactions. I mean, the state is force. That's the nature of the state is force.
yeah. So
I would
let
argue with that.
let's-
Capitalists are forced too. So.
yeah,
But we
absolutely.
can talk about that later.
And that's where he understands that, he's like, look, you're forcing these property rights, you're enforcing them with violence, the violence of the state, and that's why he sees property rights and state force being connected. And he and I would agree on that, only I support it and he
I'd
opposes
say it's
it.
all illegitimate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But if it was
Well, I
a
would make a
private...
distinction between defending your property and initiating force on somebody.
All right, so let's say this was a private university, right? And this guy is there again.
Then I'm all for
and
it.
they don't want him on their property. So then you're okay with him being forcibly removed from the premises.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not.
I mean,
but-
am I like in terms of? I mean, okay, like if someone's on your property, you can basically. I mean, you could
Require a permit? Could you require
Well,
permits?
no, hold on. Let me finish.
Sorry.
When you say okay, is it a dick move? Probably. Is it within their rights? Yeah.
Well, their rights according to who? I mean, that's where we kind of have an issue.
According to common sense, dude.
Well, you guys don't have any authorities to really say what people can and can't do anywhere.
Well, I don't believe that morality
Yeah, so neither
requires
should the
authority.
state.
I think morality is just an inherent principle to existence.
Well, now
inherent part of existence.
we're really getting philosophical.
We're getting
from
philosophical,
a
yeah.
from a hot dog conversation.
I'm a deontologist.
But
that's just.
He's an
So
enthusiast about the D.
But it's
Yeah.
really naive to. It's your morals, your capitalist private property morals don't necessarily. Not everybody agrees with those. Not everybody follows those. So they have to be codified into law and enforced.
But I don't believe that has to be like a monopoly on that enforcement.
Well, it does. I mean,
Good argument.
I mean, if it's not a monopoly, you're gonna have faction wars. You're gonna have different private interests fighting each other.
I mean,
You're gonna have
we can
different
speculate
groups
about
fighting
what
each
would
other.
happen, but I'm just talking about the basic principle.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. If an ANCOM, I mean, how is he going to employ violence? He's not going to. He doesn't agree with your right to own the means of production. He's going to pay people to take it from you.
Will he be violating his own principles by doing that?
No, he wouldn't. No, he wouldn't.
Anarcho-syndicalists, especially, they have rose and created their own societies, and that has happened.
Yeah, but they killed a lot of people in the process
They did. I mean,
because
that
they
is
killed.
a part of social change a lot of times.
Yeah, they want to murder capitalists.
Well, yes.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
Yeah. So they would certainly employ violence differently than how you would employ violence, and your two factions would fight.
Sure.
I think the ANCOMs would win.
You're right.
You think so, dude?
Well, they throw enough
I think
fedoras
I think
and
they're
fire,
crazier.
and
I think they're a little
they create
crazier.
the super
I don't know, dude.
weapon.
We're better
This
with
fedora
weapons,
super
though.
weapon.
We're
Always bet on the
well-armed.
crazy.
We're better with weapons.
No, it just shows you that those two factions would fight in
I
anarchy.
mean, as long as you don't get a Stalin type in
I mean,
power.
those two factions would definitely fight in anarchy, and you can't even write off all the statist factions who would fight you as well. So,
that's actually- that is a big deal.
state socialists and nationalist socialists, conservatives, progressives, social democrats. All these factions, like, they're going to organize, they're going to use violence, and, like, they're definitely going to overpower you and whatever you can afford as far as defense.
Yeah, but what if one of these factions takes control of the state at some point, like
Well,
they
that's
have in
that's
many other
politics.
countries?
That's politics.
Right, but then that becomes way more dangerous. Then you have the whole might of the U.S. government and the whole might of the U.S. military
Well-
under control of Stalin.
Yeah, stealing.
Like, what if that happens?
Stealing from people.
That's
I would
why-
rather have some faction over here, and then my fucking ANCAP faction, and then we can battle it out.
Well,
Not that I think that's how it's going to happen, but I'm going to play by your scenario here.
Yeah, it's a political struggle. Is whichever group controls the state makes the rules, and that's why we're trying to win elections. Before the socialists do.
I mean, that's why I'm trying to dismantle the state.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm all about.
They,
but
they,
dude,
they
but
would
dude,
just form it. I mean, they don't need your permission to form the
Would
state.
you? I actually. This was what book was it? I can't remember what book it was. The whole minarchist argument is that this or the I think the greatest argument against minarchism is that this is the end result of minarchism. Like, yeah, you can hit the reset button, but the natural thing of a state is that it will continue to grow, and then just you're back where you started. Like,
Yeah.
why not eliminate the state?
Well, it's first of all, you don't
stopping it from growing into this again.
It depends on who controls it, and you can vote for smaller government too. I mean, a government can grow depending on who's in control of it. It's not a natural process; it's purposeful action, right? It's whoever's in charge. It's what they want. They shape the law. They shape the rules. So if Ron Paul's president, the troops are coming home.
Ron Paul isn't.
If he had gotten elected, he would have ended the wars.
A state wouldn't. I don't think that the nature of the state allows someone like Ron Paul to be.
The deep state.
Exactly.
Well, I disagree with that. I think that it could have happened, but Americans didn't want it. He only got 2 million votes.
But why would you want someone who doesn't want?
But what
the
state
to
has
run
ever elected somebody like Ron Paul?
It's not just the state; it's the voters. What voters
Or
have
what
ever
that's
elected?
what I mean. What
But
voters?
then you might need
All right,
a more compelling
so
argument.
if your people, if the citizens won't even vote for somebody like Ron Paul, why would they ever adopt
Well,
anarcho-capitalism?
minarchism. Like I don't.
But here's the thing:
understand
if they
what's
are
going
going to vote someone like Ron Paul, then why wouldn't they adopt at least minarchism? Why
Yeah,
wouldn't they at least adopt minarchism?
Yeah, that's
let
a
alone
good point.
maybe get close. Then once we get there, then we can talk about anarchism.
Yeah,
Like look, we're talking about things in the current state of being, where it's like people are still voting for people like Hillary Clinton. Like we're way too far away from
the progressive faction
which
is way
why
stronger.
I always say I hate having these. I mean, I like having these discussions because they're fun.
Yeah, it's
and
just-
they're important to a degree.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we're not there yet. We're not
Yeah.
there yet. We need to get. That's why you think that I don't like what you're doing with the LP, but I do.
Thank you.
And I like that
Same
you're
here.
combating the. Sorry, buddy, but I like that you're combating the libertarian socialist movement that's growing, which is I think our next topic here.
Yeah, we should talk
Great
about it.
segue.
We should.
So,
Say,
yeah.
that's a great segue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, tell us
fight
about
it.
that.
I'm gonna butcher this guy's name, but his name is Matt Kuhnel or something like
Is
that.
it Cooch? I thought it was Kuchnell. I thought it had like a C in it.
Coochie.
Is it? All right.
Whatever it is,
Can
doesn't matter.
Can somebody check that before
I'll
I
check it.
butcher
I'll check
his
it.
name? Anyway, I'll just call him Matt.
Yes.
So Matt founded the Dankertarians Facebook page and
Yeah.
group, and I never really understood what the Dankertarians were all about. I thought they were just really pro pot and like an emphasis, libertarians with an emphasis on pot. That's what I thought they were. And then Matt was a ANCAP, I guess, and he just started drifting further left. And eventually he started saying rent is theft, which I saw you guys addressed last week. And he founded, controversially, a Libertarian Party Socialist Caucus, or Libertarian Socialist Caucus of the Libertarian Party. And I think where he's really upsetting people is affiliating himself and these ideas with the Libertarian Party, which is traditionally pro-capitalist.
Well,
And-
traditionally is a strong word.
Yeah,
When,
well,
when it was a socialist word.
The party was actually, and we could actually go way back, and I do want to talk about that. The libertarian word actually was socialist. It was the syndicalist used it. Syndicalism is worker ownership of the means of production.
Yes.
So the people that actually work in each industry would own their own factories and businesses. And they're not even really businesses because it's not a market economy. I don't believe, right? You guys just make whatever you feel like, and
yeah.
I mean, maybe you could explain it a little bit better than I can, but
Respond to the people's needs.
the point is, in the 20s and 30s, for the most part, we kind of lost our traditional label, which was liberal, and to social democrats. We also call them progressives, but there are people that believe in a large welfare state and high taxes, high progressive taxation, and lots of government intervention in the economy. So in order to avoid confusion, we took a word, libertarian. We took that from the ANCOMs / syndicalists / libertarian socialists. We took their label and
made it the opposite of what
right,
it
and made it the
originally meant.
opposite of
Yeah.
what it is.
It's a
But we
proud
also
history.
broke from traditional classical liberalism, which was, constitutionally limited government, like Jefferson and Madison promoted, and added in Rothbard in particular added in the anarchist element. So he not only
Another
took
word misused. Yeah.
he not only took the label, he also took libertarian, but also some of the philosophy of no government or statelessness. And that was a huge shift. And so now we're at a point where we have the Libertarian Party, and which is made up of minarchists and ANCAPs and some others. And now this guy is trying to say includes libertarian socialism, which is really way off the reservation. I would argue ANCAP is way off the reservation too. But, a party needs to have some consistency in philosophy. I promote that being minarchism, obviously. So, anyway, that's the history of the word libertarian.
Well, according to the things
I don't think
according to the things I've read, is that the
put any kind of anarchist. Was that again misusing the word?
well, the
but-
DSA Libertarian
What do you
Socialist
call
Caucus
statelessness, though?
was formed at the Democratic Socialist parties
It's
in
more
August.
complicated than
So it wasn't even the libertarian. It wasn't even started in a libertarian circle. It was started in the Democratic Socialist circle. I just feel like it's an attempt to leech into the Libertarian Party until the momentum that the Libertarian Party was supposed to get in this last election, and I feel like it was just a way for them to leech in and try to influence, almost like a cancer, if you ask me.
Yeah, and just take advantage of this whole sort of like pro social justice, pro like Bernie Sanders type thing. It's like the Bernie Sanders of the Libertarian Party,
pretty much.
With less state, I guess, but also maybe the same amount of state. No.
I don't know that that's where Matt is at. I think he's really like a hardcore syndicalist, like worker ownership. Do you guys know where Matt stands? Matt Kuhnel.
I mean, he's definitely an admitted socialist. Yeah, I mean, he probably is that. I mean, well, that's where I think Bernie Sanders is really.
Yeah.
I think he pretends to be this democratic socialist, but he's really just a socialist.
I don't think he's I think he once was, but I don't think he is.
No?
The left
I mean, now I think he's just kind of an opportunist.
I think he's
absolutely an
like
opportunist.
Yeah.
He's a New Deal progressive. He's not hurting nobody. He's not helping anyone.
I disagree with that.
Well, he's hurting people, but
not hurting anybody, dude.
I don't think he's hurting anyone.
The state hurts people, and he supports the state.
I don't think I think that I do support. See, that's the difference. Also, is that I do support like temporary things. Like if we can make lives easier for working people now and poor people now, I think that we should do everything we can because we're not going to see our ideal.
Who is we? The government?
I mean, yeah, no. That's actually like where I would say, like, I mean, I would vote for like a higher minimum wage. I would vote for things like that. So
even if in the long run it wouldn't produce the optimum output.
I don't agree with that. It wouldn't produce.
No.
What kind of anarchist are you?
I'm a pretty practical one.
You're very political.
He's a Kyle Wagner kind of anarchist.
Most anarchists would actually probably vote for a $15 minimum wage and et cetera. Yeah.
I don't know that I'd say most.
That I know.
A lot.
I would say most. Well, yeah.
People who don't know the word anarchy. I mean, in my opinion.
There are the anarchists that don't vote. There are those too.
Yeah.
But I also know a lot who do, and a lot
so
of
they
anarchist texts that would support that. A lot of
vote for progressive policies.
I think that we might be getting off base because this isn't necessarily what you're talking about. But I'm just saying that anarchists who do see the long run can see the short run of working people need help now. When they're being beaten over, when they're living paycheck to paycheck, sometimes not even that. Like they do need help now. We're not going to see our ideal.
But how is making them unemployed going to help them?
It's okay. Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm not doing this.
They're not just because it's a $15 minimum wage doesn't mean people are guaranteed that. They have to be able to earn that. They have to have that earning capacity, and a business has to be able to afford that. So if it's a small business and the guy's only paying his employees $10 an hour, and you make it 15, he's going, I can't afford that. And if his workers aren't generating more than 15,
but why make it 15? Why not make it 100 or 1,000?
Well,
I mean, it's the same line.
Why not make it $1 million?
Why not make it $1
billion?
I don't
let's do it so we can crush this fucking thing. Yeah.
See, that's where
only for that reason.
I feel like the ANCOMs,
only for that reason.
They support all this stuff.
I mean,
so they can crash the system.
I guess I'm down for that.
I'm down for especially
But 15, that's just going to prolong the suffering, I think.
Well, it puts people that can't earn 15 out of work. So then they earn 0. So that's where we're saying you're like people are struggling, so we need to raise minimum wage
for those people. So
you want to put them out of work by pricing them out of the labor market, by putting a minimum wage above their heads that they can't earn in the market, and then you want a social safety net to catch them when they can't get a job. So that's what you want?
I mean, I don't. I would like us to. I mean, the future I see is we are heading towards sort of roboticized labor, and I think that in capitalism that's the only scenario you can make where that's a bad thing. That's kind of the only scenario you can make where it's oh well, people won't have jobs or people will be out of jobs. No, we should be having, if we can get
that's Keynesian economics you're talking about, where it's the only way to have a real economy is full employment. No.
I'm talking the opposite. I want if we can get the most people we can out of employment.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. But you're equating that with just capitalism in general, and
I'm saying capitalism.
That's Keynesianism. Capitalism
creates the scenario where everyone needs to work in order to make
I disagree with
a
that.
living. Wait,
No,
how
the problem
in a
is
free market capitalist economy are people making a living not working?
because
How are
the
they doing it?
Poverty is the base state. No money, no food, no clothes. That's your base. That's
That's
all
not. It's not
is.
anymore.
Look at
if
any
you're born in the
animal.
wild, maybe, but it's not
That's
in
what I'm
modern
saying.
society.
But
Thanks to capitalism.
Yeah, thanks.
Not necessarily.
Right. All right.
I'm providing my kids with clothes, and I provide them with food, shelter.
Thanks
That's
to
my
workers who produce
But
things.
see, you're operating on
yes.
this idea that, and I think we talked about this, Matt, and I think you wanted me to bring it up, but the zero-sum game thing.
Yeah.
Where there's this idea that there's like X amount of money in circulation, and therefore there's only a certain amount that everyone can get, and we have to figure out who gets what of that money. And in our current system, it's this privileged class that gets the money. But that's not how a free market works. That's not how economics works. It's not a zero-sum game. Wealth can be produced. Wealth can consistently grow no matter who controls what aspect of that wealth. It can constantly grow. And when you put that wealth into the hands or into the mechanisms that can allocate it in the most productive fashion, that's when you get the most and the best and the most effective wealth creation.
That's not always the case, though. Like there are.
But most of that, yeah. But
right.
Sure. There's market failures, but a lot of those are caused by government intervention into the market, which I think even Kyle would agree with me on that.
Yeah, I mean,
Even
I'm
Kyle.
not saying all, like
Even that
even
motherfucker.
Kyle.
Kyle.
But no, you're a minarchist.
Took a break from fucking
You're a free
Lobster
market
a
guy.
second.
Like
You
yes,
agree with this?
you agree. You think that the state plays a role in law and order and blah blah blah. But you're when it comes to economics, you're pretty much free market, no?
Yeah, very much. I mean, and you mentioned interventionism. That's the prevailing philosophy under which we live.
Right.
And the government interferes quite a bit with business and with regulation and with taxes, redirecting capital. They subsidize companies they shouldn't be subsidizing. Losers. They subsidize losers.
Yes.
Bail out losers. And that's dangerous to do that.
And not only that, they prevent people from getting into the market.
They do, yeah.
They prevent people.
Some of these regulations are, they're lobbied for by the existing players to keep competition out.
Right.
So that's interventionism as well. So, yeah. They obstruct, for sure. A lot of this stuff obstructs the market.
Right. So, the whole AI thing and the whole automation thing, it is certainly a problem, and it's a problem that needs solving, but I don't. Not a problem. I'm sorry. It in and of itself is not a problem. I think it's amazing.
Like, what do you do
it's
with
amazing,
displaced labor?
but really,
That
it's
is
like
the
how do
problem.
you solve the problems and the awesome things that it's going to create? Like what's going to happen there?
I guess it's like in my.
But I don't know that.
Dude, there's also the fucking Terminator thing.
Well, there is the Terminator thing, but then we're fucked, so it doesn't fucking matter.
If we're talking about the Terminator thing, these have to come upside down.
Dude, we got fucking Kyle Reese, dude.
Yeah.
Kyle Wagner becomes Kyle Reese.
Ryan, are you for automation? Are you pro automation? Or
I'm pro, like to an extent. Like I'm not a fan of what happens right now, where like if someone gets out of a job, they're put on unemployment. I'm not a fan of that.
Okay.
I mean, I would like to see my ideal future is one where people, like, if we do advance to a state where like people don't have to work long hours and everything for a living, I think it would be in everyone's best interest to let's make the most of that. Like let's make this a better future than a worse one, where like they're suffering, they don't have any money for food, shelter, water, and all those things.
I'll just make a brief comment on automation. There's people that are pro automation, people that are against automation, and the formula in my head is always labor plus technology equals your total productivity. So as our technology improves, the total productivity of our economy goes up. So as we adopt tractors instead of digging ditches by hand, that enables us to farm more effectively and frees up labor to produce even more. So now we get what labor was producing, the farm output, plus whatever labor can produce in addition because it's been freed up. So it's that formula. It's not, okay, more technology puts labor out of work and then we lose productivity. Our total productivity goes up as technology improves.
Not when you reach the point though where because we are really reaching a point where like technology is kind of getting up there to where I mean like we need people to fix the robots when they go down.
You're saying you think we're reaching post scarcity?
I think we're perhaps.
Well, look at all the technology jobs that have been created. Look at all the software jobs, the app programming, all of the everything that's come out of the iPhones
and an economy that adapts to it, and also the people that weren't that were working jobs that wouldn't like you can't like I mean you can but like a 50-year-old man who was working at the post office all of his life isn't necessarily going to just go and work at some IT place making I mean he could but he shouldn't.
He can still work at the post office because they haven't changed one bit. Right? No, it's a government. It's a government-run operation, and so they don't innovate at all.
I believe there needs to be something to.
Well, that's why people have been proposing like the UBI.
I mean, I would, yeah.
Oh, you want to open that can of worms now?
I would love to.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I mean, like snorkel down into it.
Yeah. In principle, I would oppose something like that because it's produced from theft, but. What would be your thoughts?
I think it would be a massive expansion of the welfare state because you'd be adding a bunch of people who don't need a handout and who maybe even don't want it, and people who are could make it without it. So you'd be adding literally the rest of the population into the welfare state.
Yeah.
So I think it would mean a lot higher taxes, and it would also do things like drive rents up. People don't understand, but if you just give everybody. Like if you tax landlords, and that's what they usually want.
Landlords,
that's what the Georgists at least how they want to fund it is taxing property owners. They're gonna, and then you give it to the renters, give the renters money. The property owners are gonna go, we got to raise your rent to cover our taxes, and you got all this UBI money now, so give it up.
Well, so it's like the same thing with like college tuition. It's like, okay, if you're going to give everybody free money to go to college,
it's going to drive the cost up.
The cost of tuition up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I also think it's obviously a disincentive to work because if you give people a way to lay at home and watch TV all day, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone would do that. But
most people would.
Okay. A
lot of people would.
Just to argue, if it was all handed out across the board, and then the amount of government programs that you could cut by just handing it out and just getting rid of like so many other fucking programs, like I've heard that you could actually just do it like that and you'd eliminate a lot of government jobs and shit.
Yeah. What?
A lot of high-paying government jobs with a lot of benefits, a lot of extreme.
Well, yeah.
benefits.
Here's like let's say, but to sort of encapsulate what he just said. In theory, which would never happen, if the government cut all its other welfare programs.
Yeah.
And was like maybe they kept like I don't know homeless stuff, whatever, very bare shit.
Yeah.
But
why would they need to keep homeless stuff?
They need to keep homeless stuff. Right?
I mean, I'm saying if you had the UBI, okay,
or not homeless stuff, but like create I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm saying like I don't know like state mental hospitals for insane people, like whatever, like basic welfare shit that like. I mean, yes, the free market would take care of it. I agree, blah, blah, blah. But in theory, okay, they get rid of, like, the welfare state, and they just put in UBI. What do you think about that?
I think you would still have an enormous bureaucracy administering the UBI. I just do. They say it would be so simple and so easy. Moving all that money around, taxing everybody, distributing all that money, it would still require quite a large bureaucracy.
Money gets distributed and taxed kind of easily right now. Like it happens in like your library. Like I don't think it would be this huge complicated thing you're saying. Like. I don't know. I think that you live.
But that's the nature of government. It makes
I'm not saying that.
On paper,
you're talking about like I think if you had the bare necessity to live, and like most people do want more than the bare necessity to live, like a food, house, just stuff like that, and like it's just enough to.
But you have to ask yourself why aren't these people able to be productive in the first place?
Well, actually,
what's preventing them from being productive?
Well, I mean, look at the unemployment rate, and you'd say like most people. I think that we are reaching a stage where most people don't have to work, and I think it is a natural part, like post-capitalism. Like,
but that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't call it post-capitalism. I
you
call
need
it
something
you
like
have
UBI.
enough. You have enough, but if you don't have
really
to,
don't.
You don't. I mean,
you do if you want people to still be able to function in society and stuff like that.
But
Yeah,
what
if you like fuck
what
people and individualism only, yeah, sure.
what
But like,
encourages
if you
people
care about
to work?
people and if you care about other people, then you would suggest something like that.
But what encourages people to work when they know I don't got to do shit? I can still get enough to get me by, and I can.
I don't know. Like people do work in those situations.
Well, I mean,
like I don't know. What
well,
your
I think the
food
idea
still
is
needs to be produced.
I think
stuff like that.
I think the idea is if it's a small amount, and then you're not taxed until you make over that small amount. It's kind of like everybody gets like more of a fair start or whatever. But and then once again, if you eliminate like all those high-paying government jobs with like ridiculous benefits and shit, and you cut out so much of the fat right there, you could do this, and you could instead of spending your money on bureaucracy, you could just give it right back to the people. And then, of course, a lot of people are going to want to make more than that, and they'll have the opportunity to make more than that.
Yeah.
I think it's a stretch to say it would cut the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
There's no real evidence or no scientific study where we've really determined how much bureaucracy would cost to administer the UBI versus the existing welfare programs. And you're right, we do have a myriad of programs through the state and federal governments that help people, that provide assistance. But I'm not convinced that one-size-fits-all federal solution is the right answer
If
there.
most countries can set up a healthcare program that takes care of all their citizens, I don't understand why this would be so much more complicated.
A lot of people in those countries come here for healthcare.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't, and they're fine. So I don't necessarily think it's a great argument. Have you ever actually talked to someone from those countries where they they'll talk about their healthcare program? Most people are favorable, and they think we're fucking insane.
how many of those people had cancer though?
Okay, you're right. Not everyone has had cancer. You're right. Not everyone.
I'm just saying, like,
they get mixed reviews.
Yeah, it's
you
like
can't.
it's mixed reviews,
right.
but here a lot of people, our healthcare system isn't perfect either.
Of course not.
Yeah.
So a lot of people end
But
up
we
in
wanna
debt
go-
for the
but
rest
we
of their
wanna-
lives
but we
because they
wanna-
got sick once.
Right, but we want to go the opposite direction.
Yeah. We do, and a lot of those countries have incurred a lot of public debt that they still haven't borne the cost for,
Right.
and that's going to be hitting them over time. All the cost of all this public health care that they've got, their public debt is through the roof. They're asking for bailouts from the IMF and things like that. So, government, it's not typically an efficient operation. They typically run losses, have to borrow money to make up the difference, and we all pay for it.
Then we should get rid of it, shouldn't we? Because
not the government itself, but I think the healthcare industry
that's the nature
should
of
be.
the state, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the healthcare industry at least should be privatized.
Well, I don't agree with that, but yeah.
It's hard to know where an ANCOM or syndicalist stands sometimes because you guys have. It's not. I'm not insulting you. I'm just saying, like,
immediate practicality, but like.
But you're not.
Sometimes
thinking long-term,
you're.
though.
No, we are thinking long term.
Well,
Long term.
But you don't agree. You don't agree that
through-
incurring all that debt, like a nation state incurring all that debt, is eventually going to come back to bite them in the ass. Like you
Well, I
just
feel
think
like
that shit just.
That's a desired outcome.
Well-
Is crashing the system, blaming
Well,
on
okay.
capitalism.
Crashing it.
If you want to
crashing
make that,
and then blaming
fine,
on capitalism, and then
Right,
starting your
yeah,
communist,
yeah.
starting your communist,
Right.
state. I
Right.
mean, and it requires force. It requires your state. The communist people who don't want to be communists, they can't just opt out. They're
Well,
gonna
I
be,
mean,
they're
yeah.
gonna be
Right,
forced
and
out
I mean, I
at the
guess
end
to
of
a
it gone.
degree, I'm
Perhaps. Well, okay. So if you don't want to be a communist in a ANCOM state, that means you're an exploiter. Like that doesn't exist without exploitation. So yeah, no, of course
So
you're
you
going to
still
oppose
think
that.
then we should all be shot?
I think that if
'Cause
if your goal is to
Sent to the
like
gulag.
exploit other people, then sure.
So
yeah.
if I want to, if I have a certain, if I have a certain piece of land that I have come into control of by moving there and doing work with it and building a house on it, growing some crops on it, and then I come to you and I say, hey, I want to trade you this bale of or this thing of corn, and it looks like you've got your beans there. Am I exploiting you?
Well,
there,
it depends
or-
on how you do. Well, no.
Like,
not
where does
just trade.
exploitation happen? But let's say
exploitation happens when someone gives you their labor and you don't give them the full product of their labor.
How do you
That's when
decide? How do you
exploitation-
determine what the full product of their labor is?
When you say like someone is working for you and profits are made.
Well, what
From that
if I
what?
pay you to work my farm, right?
Yeah.
And then I pay you a price that's agreed upon, because that's the only way I'm going to let you work there is if you agree to work there. I'm not going to kidnap you and force you to work there. But I'm paying you to operate my tractor, but it's my tractor. I paid for it. So I mean,
and not only
eventually that tractor will be paid for.
Hold on. Let's say and let's say he paid for it, but he also took out a loan on the tractor, and that loan, in order for that loan to get paid, he's taking a risk. Mm-hmm. He's taking a risk of, well, I expect to produce this amount of crop, and if I don't produce this amount of crop, well, I'm going to lose my whole farm.
So in order to pay off this debt, he needs to pay the worker far less than what the labor was worth in order.
But how do you determine what the labor was worth?
That's subjective.
Yeah, well, I mean, in my situation, the labor would only be worth what it's agreed upon with whoever I hire. Like I said, I'm not going to force.
See, this is
the
problem with Marxism, communism, anarchist, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's all the same thing in my mind. Is that you guys, your theory of value is ultimately flawed because it has no basis. Because ultimately value is subjective. That beer, like let's say I took a sip of that beer and I thought it tasted like shit, which I've never heard of it. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
It's warm.
Yeah. See, then it probably tastes like shit.
But it's got this like puffed out bottom.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. But let's say I took a sip of that beer and I'm like, this tastes like shit. I wouldn't pay any money. You couldn't even pay me to drink it.
Well, no one forced you to buy that beer.
But here's the thing: the value of that beer, to me is $0. It's less than $0. It might be negative $20 because you'd have to pay me more than $20 to drink that beer. But to you, you've paid. How much did you pay for that beer?
I didn't pay for this.
Did you steal the beer?
I'm not going to talk about that.
All right. Well.
That kind of blows your whole thing out of the water, doesn't
Okay,
it?
we all just steal from each other, then anarcho syndicalism works.
No, we're talking about...
Welcome to anarchy.
But let's say you did pay for it,
okay.
or whatever. Let's say
I have paid for beer in my life.
You paid for beer that probably I wouldn't want to drink,
or
I'd prefer something else. That beer to me is worth $0 in that moment.
Well, this beer isn't really performing a whole lot of labor for you.
Right, but labor is there's not a distinction between labor.
I mean, there is.
Because it's all a transaction. It's all you exchanging something that you've either built, made, exchanged for previously, earned through whatever means, voluntarily.
Well, I don't agree with the words voluntarily. I don't agree with those words.
So if I paid you $2 for that beer,
okay.
I didn't acquire it voluntarily. I exploited you $2 for that beer.
You're talking about employment. I don't agree that employment is voluntary.
So if I offer somebody, hey, I will give you this.
There's
this
no voluntary employment where there's nothing voluntary about employment where the options are worker starved. There's no voluntary.
Well, what about
employment.
when people love their job?
Where the options are what?
Where the options are worker starved.
What does that mean?
That means that, like, if I don't have a job, then I won't be able to buy food or won't be able to have food.
So you think that people should be enslaved to provide you with food? Who's going to produce the food for you?
People who are working jobs where they live.
Yeah, but who's paying those people?
And why are those people going to work there?
We're talking about creating a society where, like,
where people just want to work for just...
Where everyone's needs are met. Like, they have their needs met, and so they're providing for that system.
But how do you determine what their needs are? How do you determine what their needs are?
How do you determine who gets an
SNES
Classic?
Like I said, you bought... Let's say...
Capitalism isn't even good at...
Let's say you bought that beer for $1. You're saying that you need that beer more than you need that $1.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I don't need that beer for $1. How are you going to calculate that need with just... this idea of, like, everybody's needs,
like answers to that too. It's about the actual relationship between the worker and their workplace. I'm not talking like you're.
Well, look, I'm all about. Look, dude, I work for a company. They treat me amazingly. Like,
yeah, and a lot of people work like companies and they don't. But it's not necessarily not everyone can get that job. Some people are forced into these shady jobs. I don't think every maid at a hotel wants to be a maid at a hotel.
Yeah, but she'd rather be a maid at a hotel than, you know.
I'm not sure that she had all these options to exhaust like this capitalist idea implies. I think I got into this last time I was on here.
Yeah, but you're talking... It
always evaporates.
But because you don't believe that we own ourselves. See, you believe that we don't own ourselves. So
I don't believe in humans are something to be owned. No, I don't believe that humans... Because in the capitalist
you can't own
idea,
other people, but
well, no, actually, I read some libertarian papers that did say that you can.
Well, radical capitalism.
Was that a Walter Block paper by any chance?
So, say, like, what was the one thing I read? It was like, if this person had this this serum to cure this family member of yours or something, you wanted to cure them more than anything, you should be able to enslave yourself to them in order to get it. And that would be allowed in the ANCOM free market. And I don't really see any logical reason why it wouldn't be allowed in the ANCOM free market. Especially with the NAP and all that.
All right.
They have the serum.
That's another fucking balloon in the sky.
And then let's throw the babies into the fire.
I got an example. I want to run through like a test case where he's gonna point out the exploitation. All right, so we're gonna play spot the exploitation. So let's say
let's do it. Let's say spot the exploitation.
Jared wants to build a birdhouse. All right, so he pays $5 for the materials, the wood and the tools, and then he pays me $15 to construct the birdhouse. And I agree. I say, okay, $15. I'll sit here with the hammer and I'll put this thing together for you, and I'll give it to you, and you give me the money. And then he sells that birdhouse for $5. So his cost, it was $5 for the materials, it was $15 for the labor. His cost is $20. He sold it for $25. So he has profit. He made a profit on this one of $5. Do you think that I was exploited to the tune of $5 because he made that profit on that? I mean, I agreed to the 15. It's not like I can go back to him and say, "Whoa, buddy, I didn't know you were going to sell that to somebody for 25. Now you owe me the difference. You owe me that profit." Right? I agreed to work for 15. So how am I being exploited when I agreed to do it for 15? We traded labor for pay, and that was our exchange.
Yeah,
so that's we're square at that point. Listen, we're square at that point.
Yeah, dude, and it's like you just built the birdhouse. You know, you didn't have to sit around in the store all day and wait for somebody to come and buy it eventually.
Well,
you're not an employee. You were just like a contracting kind of thing.
What difference does that make? I mean, all right, let's say you just repeat the scenario. Repeat the scenario every day for a year, and every day I'm building him a new birdhouse, and every day it's same thing.
Yeah, no,
$15.
Compensated for your labor when he's making all that off of your labor. Yeah,
he's making 25 minus the 20 of his cost, so he's making a profit of 5. Why am I owed that 5? That
You're
additional
doing
5?
The fucking work. That's
but he paid for the materials. And he exchanged my
well.
With
he paid
me.
for the materials. He had
After
the
the
idea.
He's got to paid for.
He's got to go out.
He's
got to go out and sell it.
So he should get nothing.
No,
so he should get the 5 to cover.
return.
He should get the 5 to cover his materials, because he did contribute for the materials. But then the additional 5 from the customer, that should go to me as the labor and not to him.
Yes.
Why would he ever try to construct birdhouses? Why would he have a birdhouse business?
Arguing for the capitalist mode of production.
All right,
so
but
isn't a good argument.
Listen, you said it's exploitative to have employment is exploitative. I just explained an employment relationship to you.
I'm saying
I'm asking you to tell me
relationship is one in which everyone is on equal footing, and there's not this.
We are on equal footing.
You're not on equal.
Why
footing.
not?
He's up here.
Have you ever ran your own business?
Why is he up there? I mean, I'm selling my labor to him.
No.
You know, we're on. It was an exchange. It was a straight up exchange.
I'll tell you what.
I would
never.
This argument.
There is no exploitation.
Listen,
ANCOM's
like hanging out. Like I've been there.
There is no exploitation there.
What argument?
Of the ANCOM. I mean, you can look on RT. You can find me with a big ass mohawk at a Ron Paul rally, but like I've found my way.
But you really couldn't explain where the exploitation is in that exchange. No, there's no reason why that $5 that he made off of it should come to me when I agreed to do it for 15, and I gave him the birdhouse that I had assembled. It's his. He owns that. He got his assembled birdhouse. I got my money. So I'm square.
I guess I'm like having trouble because I don't really see it relevant on a larger scale. Like I don't know.
I don't know how you don't see it as
friends like hanging out making birdhouses. I don't see that as the same thing.
It doesn't matter if you're talking about cars or you're talking about furniture or what you're talking about.
All these people don't have any options but to work at the sweat house for these like terrible conditions.
Well, they can work for someone else, but I mean,
they can't. They don't have anyone else to do that, and they don't have the.
Yeah, but a lot of that is created by. Well, okay, look. Let's look at China as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
So China notoriously has very cheap labor, right?
Yeah.
And China has also had a communist regime in power since ever, basically. They've become more capitalist as it's gone on, but they're considered a second world country because they basically have a pseudo-capitalistic regime in power. However, because of the influence of the United States and our capitalism, their wages have been rising steadily over the past 20 years. It's grown exponentially, because that's what happens when you have supply and demand. When you have demand for products, so you have Apple and you have all the even Foxconn, which is horrible. Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending these sorts of things.
I hear
which I don't think exist if China isn't communist. That's the side point.
Communist either. So.
Well, it's pseudo, whatever. It's we're not really capitalists. We're pseudo-capitalists.
But China's
right.
pretty fucking What's that one? Libertarians even say that China's more capitalist than us.
I mean,
that's the thing. They say that.
They're
they
hard
moved to China to work there.
I mean, in some regards, yes. I mean, fine. Their patent laws are very lax, which I think
market. And it's
awesome.
disgusting.
they're hard to pin down, but they don't seem to be Soviet style communist.
No, I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just saying they, the remnants of that have kept their people in poverty for a long time.
Yeah.
However, because they've been willing to contract out their labor to the U.S. at very suppressed rates, the problem is for them that capitalism leaks in, and so their rates are now getting pushed up because it's basic economic principles in action.
Do they have private property over there? I guess they sort of do. Right?
Oh, they have. Yeah, I think they have.
They have private businesses.
Yeah. I'm not saying they're full communists. I'm not saying that at all.
They're not communists in any stretch. Yeah.
But I'm saying they're a communist sympathizing sort of regime that was a remnant of.
They're still ruled by the Communist Party, but
right.
their Communist Party.
It's in name.
Yeah,
Sure.
And Cuba has gone in that direction too. They used to have close to 100% public employment, and now it's down to 70% or something because they've laxed their strict rules a little bit, and I guess allowed some free enterprise down there because they had to. It was out of necessity. The government wasn't able to meet all of the needs of their people,
right.
So they went to a market just by the nature of it. It didn't work, which we know socialism doesn't work.
Right, but I guess my point of that was, we're talking about situations, situations that are created by heavy statism, I guess you could say, that have caused things like Foxconn and have caused things like this. Basically, my ultimate sort of thesis here is these things aren't a natural byproduct of free market capitalism. I don't think you have, in 2017, I don't think you have sweatshops. Maybe you have sweatshops prior to the Industrial Revolution, because that was just a natural outgrowth of, all right, we're industrializing, it's happening at a super rapid pace. These people are working on farms where they're fucking starving. Now they're moving to the factories, which is marginally better. It's not great, but it's definitely better than the farms that they were living on, or else why would they be coming to the fucking factories? But, that only lasted for so long, and, everyone says, oh, the government saved us, but that's not, we all know that's not
well, that's a great question, is did the government save us, or did workers demand better conditions, and technology improved, air conditioning improved, became more common, and working conditions improved over time, or was it the result of law? I think you can make the case that, especially with air conditioning, the notion of sweatshop, I mean, most places are air conditioned. I work in an air conditioned office, so I'm not typically sweating at work. I don't know, but that's the debate that we have.
It
is a debate. It is a debate.
Why did working conditions improve? Right. Was it due to law, or was it due to,
or was it the law sort of following the trend? Or who knows? Yeah, I mean,
what is that? I believe it was child participation in labor was decreasing by 1% every year until they passed the law in 1933, where kids can't work. And I mean, in a lot of those situations, these kids were putting in extra money for their family, and people think of it as individual. But I mean, and think about it. We think about it as an individualist, and we think about it as personal. But they were part of a family, and they were working. And the working conditions sucked. And I mean, they led to lots of diseases later in life because they were working in coal mines and other stuff that they didn't know about.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
But once, but the participation, I believe it was.
I mean, are you an anarcho-primitivist?
No, I'm
Or
not.
do you think?
wait,
Hold on. Do you think people would
because I don't
volunteer?
believe in child labor, it makes me an anarcho-primitivist?
Well,
what?
Okay. Is it cool for just like adults to work in a coal mine
It's
for
not
money?
cool for children to be to have to work in coal mines.
No, I don't want my kids to work. I don't want my kids to have to work.
Well,
Like,
look, I'm not saying that it's cool.
It kind of sounded like you were about to just be like, well, let's justify
Well, I mean,
this.
the trends were already going in that direction. I mean, because to me, you sound like are you familiar with Mikhail Bakunin?
Yeah.
You sound very like everything you say sounds just like that. And he was anarchist who believed in pretty much what was it, the council communism and collectivism and stuff like that. But ultimately, you know what I mean? Like that still resulted in you, like you even said, like people. You said people who exploit, they deserve to die because they're exploiting in their systems. And I mean that, and so it's like
you can deal with it another way, but you can deal with it in a more peaceful
if you
way.
can
It
kill
doesn't
them, I
have to
mean,
be-
they're no doubt going to resist that.
Yeah, they're like trying.
I mean,
they're like I will fight with my life to dominate another human individual. I mean, that's why we fight wars and shit.
Yeah.
like
you
that,
say it's
so.
dominating, but I'm saying
It is
if,
dominating.
If a kid who's 12 years old wants to be in the back of a shop, I want to teach them some things, few hours a day. Maybe after school, I think
Sounds
it's
like kind of creepy, dude.
Yeah,
I'm
this
just
is
saying,
fucked
like,
up,
in
bro.
the back of a
Like-
shop, like he sweeps up, he organizes
that
things on the
sounds
shelves.
awesome.
He makes a little bit of money. That helps, and it goes to
Child
family
wants to
or even
rent out
him
his
and his
body
You
for
income.
monster.
How
I
come
know.
he shouldn't be able to do that?
But is that exploiting? Am I exploiting? If
Yes, you are exploiting a child. Yes.
But if say it's my son and he
Wait,
agrees
where
to
does
it,
that line draw? By the way, because like I was joking, but like now I kind of want to seriously ask. Like, okay, self ownership. That 12-year-old wants to rent his body out as a prostitute.
Oh God, do we have to go?
We have to go there. Where does it end? We're the free market.
Yeah,
There's
well,
no
that's
government,
a
there's no
question.
state.
That's a question of when do you become? I guess when do you become an adult is
That's what I'm saying, though. It's like, when do you become an adult? Like, when you become an adult, then yeah, sure, but like,
well, it's like, look, you don't. I don't follow like the Rothbardian thing where it's like children are property. I don't think that's a thing. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if your kid wants to go eat a whole bunch of candy and you tell him not to, I don't think you're violating that kid's like non-aggression principle.
yeah. Well,
you
so
know?
I have 3 kids, so
Yeah.
and I don't feel like I'm their owner. I don't feel like I can tell. I mean,
You're their
I can-
custodian.
I,
You're
I,
custodian.
I'm
Custodial.
responsible
Yeah.
for their actions legally by law. I'm responsible, and I have to comply to that into a certain degree. And so, like, I don't want my kids working in a coal mine, but if they wanted, like I said, they wanted to go work. If they were okay with it, and I felt and I deemed it was okay, they were at a job like at a convenience store, just sweeping up in the back, organizing shelves.
What if they wanted to work at Kyle Wagner's hot dog stand?
Kyle Wagner's hot dogs and blowjob stand.
Permits required, right? Permits required.
So I don't feel like I'm exploiting my kid. If he's okay with it and he grasps it, teaches them lessons in life about how to maintain a schedule, maintain a stock room, if that's so be it. And I encourage him.
Little
I
bit
If
don't-
kids are property, though, then he's his own property. So
yeah, and if he was like, no, I don't want to do it, I'm like, look, try it out. I want you to at least try it. And if it doesn't, if it's too much for you to handle, it's too much for you, then I'd be like,
it's like we're
okay,
opening
then that's
up a
fine.
lot of sketchy avenues. Is like when
Well,
you
I'm not
come
gonna say
with
go
that.
suck
not
dick
sketchy.
for money. I'm not gonna.
But he can because
Well,
he is his
not
own
to me,
property.
To me, no, because
He is
that's
his
hurting it. That's
yeah. I mean that
Yeah.
is a philosophical discussion
Yeah.
that needs to happen.
But
where
it
it's
could
like
be
where
hurting him too. There might be a better ways he could be spending his time as a child. And
But see, you look at it as if there's well, what if you want him to do this? Well, I'm just saying I'm working on my specific case where, like, if it's almost like a mutual relationship, like as a family member, I'm saying to him, I would really like it if you just got some basic lessons, help you out later in life, when you can become, enter the workforce, like 14, I think it is in Maryland, or 16, like if you want to do that, what I mean, it might help you out, later in life, just get your head start into working.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like
Well,
he's
remember-
not talking about like your
but-
kid wants to go outside and play, and you're like,
No,
you got to work 8 hours.
But also
you
remember,
can do that
what year's like sort of like I understand what you're saying, like now, like this would be how this would be applied to now. Yeah, maybe right now if your 12-year-old wanted to go to work, he'd be sweeping up inside. But like what, like what the avenue we took to get there was we were talking about these exploitive labor conditions that these kids were working in.
But the kid isn't being exploited. He's learning things.
They weren't
learning.
learning anything in these coal mines and stuff. I was talking about that.
Okay, yes.
That.
And that's why I wouldn't want.
But they were earning money to support their families.
You're right. They were.
And here's the thing. It's like it's yeah. But how do you how do you industrialize without capitalism? How do you get to
industrialize without child labor?
You think we can? I
think we can industrialize.
I believe child labor peaked in the late 19th century, but yet for some reason,
it was necessary for capitalism to become what it was. We needed child labor.
No, you didn't need child labor. You needed.
It was a part of it
because
though.
a lot of people were.
That was the
a lot of union
unfettered
members
free
were,
market capitalist
were opposed
system.
to it. A lot of union members were opposed to it because it was taking the same reason why now a bunch of rednecks scream, "Oh, these immigrants are stealing our jobs." You know, it's the same thing it was back then. They were saying, "Oh, well, we have hardworking men that will go down there and work." And that's why they didn't like child labor, and that's why unions got away. That was the main reason why labor unions were against child labor. It wasn't. It was because they wanted their people that they could have enter in the workforce, grown adults and stuff, do stuff that at the time I guess they deemed it was pretty much like anyone can do it, so I'll have a kid do it.
Once again, unions making sense over capitalists, but
but I mean, okay,
well, no unions, but not for the right. I mean, yeah. It's more of an ends justifies the means thing, which is what you guys are all about.
No, but child labor, dude. Child labor, man. You think back to that. You think back to that time. Like my grandfather, when his father died, I believe when he was 10 years old, and he actually ran away from the orphanage with his brothers and sisters. And then the story goes, he got his first job by holding somebody at gunpoint, forcing them to hire him. Mm. And apparently it happened, and everything worked out. So
yeah, that was a fucked up situation. That
what is this story?
It was a fucked up situation.
It's not a legitimate situation.
It was a fucked up situation.
Him.
He didn't want to. But this is of his own free will. He didn't want to live with the state, and he went out and he would rather do this job than live with the state.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, really, like, what's the bad thing about that? I mean, like, his mom died when he was very, very young. And then, his dad died when he was 10. And, rather than stay in that home, he'd rather participate in the state. How does that not make his life better?
Yeah. I think the risk is exploitation of children, because they're so young. So you could get parents really exploiting their 8-year-old, 9-year-old.
I totally get that. But it's always been told to me that in my grandfather's situation, it sounded to me like a good thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
It worked out in that way, and I feel. But like my main point was that we were talking about. Well, the unions did this. Well, really, I mean, it was the law that established that in the 30s, saying that kids couldn't
get
work
there without,
Well, but it was naturally declining through. I think they said 1% every year. It was declining child participation in labor.
Yeah, because the society was getting wealthier.
Yes.
But look, I mean, it is a natural consequence of just wanting to improve, wanting to grow wealth. I mean, look, children have been laborers throughout all of human history. It's not like all of a sudden we invented child labor. But it was like, okay, we had this industrial thing going on. These children are working. It sucks. Yeah, I'll grant you that. But we got out of it pretty quickly in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of human history. The same thing is like, I mean, shit, even like slavery. Like, slavery is one of the worst things in the world. However, compared to like the rest of human history, we kind of got through that shit pretty fast. I would say. I'm not like condoning any slavery or anything. Let me tiptoe around that topic, but I'm just saying, like, this idea that like all of a sudden you can just produce wealth without some kind of harsh things in the midterm, it's just not reality. It's just not how it works.
We do have compulsory K through 12 schooling right now with a lot of homework on top, so that's 6-7 hours, maybe 8 hours a day that you are forced to sit somewhere you might not want to sit, and forced to go home and do homework and reports and all that.
I agree, dude. Let's abolish public schools. I'm all about that shit. So is Arvin Vohra, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Also, let me go back. I was not implying that slavery was necessary.
I got you.
I just want to make sure that's clear.
I
I don't know why I drew that tangent. I guess I was kind of like complimenting American society a little bit, but not really. I don't know.
The progression that it eventually ended.
Yeah.
Through, you know,
That things end when people realize, like, okay, I don't
what
know.
you're saying.
I don't know.
I got
Never
it.
mind. Forget the slavery shit. But like the other stuff, yeah. I mean, it's a part of industrialized society. It's a part of creating wealth and making everybody wealthier. That's what happens. I mean, and it's better than people starving on farms, which is the inevitability otherwise. That's all I'm saying.
Ready for a new topic?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's move on.
Got Sarwark versus Woods. Have you guys talked about all this controversy on past episodes? I didn't.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah, we touched on it.
So, like, what's Kyle Wagner's take?
What's
What's Kyle Wagner's take?
Give us the wag. We
You
should have
know-
a graphic that comes out. It's like,
the wag?
Yeah,
Really wag.
and it kind of goes hand in hand, but
I'm gonna
we
start you a website.
we skipped talking about the new Mises caucus of the LP as well. Which it goes hand in hand because Sarwark was attacking Woods and particularly Jeff Deist from the Mises Institute for doing a dog whistle to the far right by including the words blood and soil in his speech. And I know this is an old story for libertarians, but the point that I wanted to make was, and I listened to Sarwark's interview on the Jason Stapleton show, and he was kind of saying, look, with the way the news has been going, the media has been going, we want to make it clear to everyone that we are not white nationalists and we don't support white nationalists. And the libertarian movement also has 3 of the prominent members of the white nationalist movement have come out of our movement, and that's Christopher Cantwell, Richard Spencer, and I don't know that he necessarily came out of the libertarian movement, but he gave an introductory
But you
speech
just said that, Kyle.
for Ron Paul at one point. So we have that black mark. It's like a black eye, and then
Yo, why's it got to be black?
and then Augustus Invictus, who again, I don't know that he's a white nationalist and not just a nationalist, but he was a scheduled speaker at Unite the Right and a former LP Senate candidate.
He's an alt-right.
Dude, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think it's that big of a that big of a thing, because it's like most of the libertarians I know don't want to have anything to do with these people. I've followed libertarianism very closely for a very long time, since the early 2000s. And I didn't know who Augustus Invictus was. I didn't know who Richard Spencer was.
Also, let's keep in mind that the people that tend to
Christopher
want to
Cantwell.
be the people that tend to want to be in the spotlight.
Let me get to
Oh, I'm
Cantwell,
sorry,
though.
I'm sorry,
Let me get
I'm
to
sorry.
Cantwell.
Go ahead.
Now, Cantwell I did know of. Cantwell, I heard him speak at PorcFest in 2013, and I was moved by what he was saying then. He came off as a little extreme, but I think we've got an extreme state. So maybe we should talk about extreme measures. That's how he came off in 2013. He actually gave me chills. He was
he calling for violent revolution?
I mean, pretty much, but like against a murderous state.
Augustus has done the same thing. I mean, Augustus has called for killing politicians and things like that.
Well, at any rate, I followed Cantwell throughout the years, and then it didn't take very long where he just kind of like, I just didn't really see very eye to eye to him with anything. It eventually got to the point where like he was suggesting that I believe he was on Facebook suggesting that we should go back to arranged marriages, and I'm just like laughing my ass off because I'm thinking like, who's going to want to promise their like fucking acres and a mule to fucking, Chris Cantwell to marry their daughter? like fucking nobody,
Yeah.
This fucking fat piece of shit, and he's just like he's just a huge fucking asshole. He just got worse and worse, and he's to the point now. My point is, he's not saying anything that's libertarian now.
Nothing. It was to me. Sarwark is just he's trying to protect party. Mm-hmm. The capital L libertarian. Mm-hmm. He's so afraid, and so he's going on with this virtue signaling of having to say, "Oh, we're libertarian." No, our party's not racist at all. Where I believe Woods is saying, like, I shouldn't have to tell you that. Like my principles should tell you that, and I'm not going to be forced into saying and virtue signaling and saying, "Well, I am not a racist." To me, that's what it was coming off as.
Yeah, like I'm definitely I'm with Woods on that, and I am to a point. But I part of me is thinking now too, like as this conversation goes on and on and on. I mean, can't we just say we don't like Nazis?
Yeah, I mean,
I hate how we have to say that.
I hate how we have to say it too, but eventually, just like fucking say it and get it over with. It's just so fucking boring.
But then as soon as you say, like, oh, I don't like Nazis, then you kind of open this whole can of worms of, like, oh, why? Like,
of not liking hateful bastards?
No, dude, I'm Jewish. I fucking hate Nazis.
I'm not saying that, no, I mean, you mean, like, ideologically, do you have a problem with them having to say that? Like,
no, not ideologically. I'm talking just practically speaking, like, this, I don't know, I agree with Tom Woods on, like, you shouldn't have to sign a fucking, like, statement that says you don't like Nazis. It should just be inherent to the philosophy. Yeah. I'm a libertarian.
It's not. Like,
it is.
There
These
are
people,
libertarians going out there,
but there aren't.
And then
all right,
creating that public doubt.
No, but here's my thing. These people are not libertarians. These people are not libertarians.
And that's fine
they're Hold on. Give me a second, dude. These people, see, the people that want the spotlight, the people that want to be, have their fucking, like, huge web pages. I mean, I know we have Punk Rock Libertarians, but it's not like your name on there. It's not like Matt Bergman's Punk Rock Libertarians. It's
not yet.
Not yet. I know. But, like, these sort of people that want to, like, make a name for themselves, like,
like fucking Kyle Wagner,
like Kyle Wagner, like, goddamn, like, but these kind of people, and I'm generalizing here, but, like, they tend to not be really in it for the right reasons. Like, they're in it for themselves. They're in it to promote their name. They're like, oh, here's a rebellious philosophy that I can kind of attach my bandwagon to and sort of ride it along. And then the thing with Chris Cantwell is, like, it got to the point where, like, libertarianism, it kind of becoming a little bit more mainstream, like, not as rebellious. Like, the LP is, growing a little bit, like
Gary Johnson
was on CNN. Like, okay, it's not as rebellious anymore. Well, what's the next step? Oh, I don't know. Like, there's this whole alt-right movement going on. Maybe I'll hitch my wagon to that thing.
It's his desire to be a self-promoter. Right. You think that affected him? I disagree.
100%.
I disagree. I don't
well,
think
I mean,
so.
he's also insane, but that's
I think it's his social conservatism. I think
but I don't
is
think
a big
that is
part
inherent.
of it.
I don't agree that that's an inherent thing in libertarianism, but
yeah. I mean, he's just angry. He's an angry guy. He's got a lot of anger. He's angry about the crime, and he's angry about the government. And he's just got a lot of rage in him, and I think that movement was a natural fit for him because I think anger is really what the alt-right sort of just gives off, at least to me. I mean, somebody like Tommy Loren or Lauren Southern, I watch their videos, and I'm like, why are these women so mad? I mean, they're very angry all the time. But
but hold on. My point is this though. I don't think that I think it is inherent in libertarianism that Nazism is bad. Like, I don't think there's anything about libertarianism that says, well, maybe we can try Nazism. Like, I don't think that's so. By saying, like, well, now I have to make it very clear that I don't support Nazis because my philosophy leads to Nazism. Yeah. That's the thing. That's the problem that I have is, like, as soon as you say, like, well, I have to distance myself from these people because, well, my philosophy can kind of lead there. That's what I disagree with. I don't think there's any connection between libertarianism and Nazism. I don't think there's any connection at all.
Well, classical liberalism, it's the same thing.
Or classical liberalism, or
it's a different political philosophy,
or any of the subgroups of liberty. Like, I don't think you're obligated to distinctly say. Just like the average person walking down the road, oh, sir, I need you to prove to me that you don't like Nazis. Yeah. Please sign this pamphlet for me.
I understand what you're saying.
Bullshit.
I understand what you're saying. Sarwark's point was Tom Woods, through his association with League of the South and or I guess Neo-Confederacy. I know I saw him speak, or a picture of him speaking with a Confederate flag in the background, and then he said a portion of Tom's audience is alt-right, and he thinks that Tom is afraid to offend those guys. I'm one that I think if somebody's not open, I don't assume that they hold those views. So unless someone's like Chris Cantwell, where they're openly describing themselves as a white nationalist or a fascist, I take it as a default that they're not. Like, you have to be open. I'm not on a witch hunt trying to figure out
listened
who
to a lot
secretly
I've listened
holds
to a lot
those
of
views.
Tom Woods episodes, and I've never gotten the idea that he was
I never
sympathetic
have.
to the alt-right at all.
Never.
He is sympathetic to the Confederacy, I think, a little bit.
Well, I think he is sort of takes a position that Bergman does on that issue. I don't think he's sympathetic to the Confederacy. I think he's sympathetic to the idea that it's not exactly what you learn in school.
Yeah, and
which whatever. I mean, I'm not an expert on that issue. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get into that at all. But I don't think that Tom Woods wants, black people to be slaves again. Like,
no.
I mean,
and I didn't think that Blood and Soil line meant that much. And then I watched the video, which actually happened after the Dice speech. Those guys in Virginia were chanting "Blood and Soil." Like, that really is one of their big sayings. They're marching down the street saying that. And so I can understand why Sarwark would say, like, it was a dog whistle to them. I had never even heard the phrase before, so I didn't even know. But then I'm like, oh, that's their mantra, and he slipped it into his speech. Was it a dog whistle? I don't know. I don't know his mind. My problem with the Mises Institute is that it's anarchist. It's Rothbardian, and Mises was not an anarchist.
Of course, Kyle.
Right. But everybody knows that already.
That's fine. And I mean, okay, but there's a difference between being an anarchist and being a white nationalist.
Yeah, there is. I guess
that's all I'm trying to say.
I didn't mean to derail the conversation, but I mean, that's my bigger issue with the Mises Institute.
Okay, fine. That's
than
fair.
a line in a speech that may or may not have been a dog whistle. It's just the fact that I think they botched the entire philosophy of Mises's philosophy and still use his name, and that's also an issue I have with the new Mises caucus, where their advisors are like Tom Woods and Hoppe and what have you. Walter Block, maybe they've reached out to all these ANCAPs, and I'm like, these are ANCAPs, and it's like, if you're going to call yourself the Mises Institute, you should at least stick to Mises.
Yeah, but wasn't it
Mises Caucus?
I mean, it was Lew Rockwell who started the Mises Institute, and he was an anarchist. So
yeah.
So you're saying they should throw his name off?
Well, it's so crazy, and I the speech is gone, but it was Bettina Greaves, I think, was talking about some of the old days, the founding of that, and was it Bettina or Margot? I think it was Bettina, but yeah, like, Lou approached Mises's wife and was like, "Is it okay if we start this? We'll promote his ideas." And a lot of people just always assume that Rothbard and Mises were the same. And the more you read of them, you're just like, oh my God, these guys are like, they're night and day. They really have a lot of disagreement on politically. They talk about free market. On the free market, they're similar as far as how profit and loss works and how decisions are made. But law and order, I mean, it's different. And Rothbard does call for laws, which is really weird. But I don't know who he thinks is going to make them. I guess ANCAPs.
Well, I mean, and he said Sarwark he said the Mises Institute is the preferred choice of actual Nazis.
That's terrible. That's really
that's what I'm saying, man. Like, that's the kind of shit where
I kind of just like say this like before, like, the only reason why I think that, like, I thought that was a poor decision, because I read that where Tom Woods said, like, I shouldn't have to, all that. That is legitimate. But it's also, like, ignoring a lot of, like, what is happening is that, like, a lot of people from the libertarian camp are identifying as this, and they're making it very public, and they're making it very... So then they are... But what they're doing is they're sort of shaping public opinion of what libertarians are like, what libertarians... I'm going to tell you, most people who aren't libertarian, like that wing of libertarian, they think that it's all "Make America Great Again" hats and things like that. And so when people call for, like, Tom Woods to make a distinction, that might have actually been a smarter move to make the distinction, because sort of almost like, oh, well, we shouldn't have to. Yeah, you shouldn't have to, but that just because should is a thing doesn't mean that reality isn't always like taking should and punching you in the face, you know?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what's more effective, is having to just apologize for every retard that decides he wants to be a Nazi now.
Well, then you get your thing hijacked, and then that becomes the new, like, then no one's going to join the...
But also, I don't think it's as like, I think it feels like it's more people than it really is. It is certain prominent people in the libertarian community. Like, it is Christopher Cantwell, who was prominent.
really, I guess, who else though?
Not that
I
anyone
wouldn't
takes
call
him
hold on.
seriously, but
Yeah.
Molyneux.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one.
Seriously, but no one. But every single one of his thumbnails has Trump on it, and like.
Oh
every
yeah,
single-
he's definitely a Trumper. I don't know that I would.
He had he had Ann Coulter on his show and was like,
Yeah, no,
you're
he's a
fucking rad,
conservative. He's a conservative.
How about Jared Howe?
but still uses the words.
Oh,
the
I mean, he's a
language.
huge piece of shit. But I don't call him like a prominent figure.
But he.
I mean, within our movement, I mean, he's pretty prominent. Like, people know who he is.
The
A
numbers
lot of
don't always
libertarians
have
know
to
who he
be
is.
there.
Yeah.
But he's
the
not a
numbers don't always have to
nationally
be
known
either.
figure.
Yeah, but
Well,
generally
one
not for
person
good
at a
reason.
time, 1% at a time. 1% at a time.
But the numbers don't always have to be there either. It can be who is speaking the loudest to make who makes the face of the group.
I get that.
Especially when people are who hold the real values or whatever. They're saying like, well, we shouldn't have to say anything, and so they stay quiet while they're loud.
But okay, fine, fair enough. However, like I said, like you listen to Tom Wood's podcast, and you never get the idea that he's in favor of any of these people. He talks shit about these people all the
1,000
time.
episodes of capitalism, not national socialism.
Yeah, he's never
which is
once
what
said
it
it-
is to be a Nazi.
Right. He's never said anything in favor of these people. He's talked about the alt-right before. He's criticized them. He's criticized the Antifa. He's criticized all these people. I don't know why.
exact
I don't know
opposite.
why. Like signing. This is literally asking him to sign a paper.
It's not.
No, but that was what was literally asked of him. Was like,
Yeah.
Right? I need you to sign a
Sign
paper
it,
that
yeah.
says that you oppose, and it's like, fuck you. Listen to my podcast. Read my books. Like, I don't support this shit. Like, why do I have to fucking sign a paper? And suddenly you're the person that is in charge of determining whether libertarianism is a Nazi.
I don't know how it all went down.
You know, what?
Did Sarwark actually insist that he sign an online petition? I think it was an online thing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
an
And
online
he
thing.
insisted that he sign it. Are you sure about that?
I'm
almost-
pretty
yeah.
I didn't-
positive. That's what I heard.
I don't know if that's correct. I don't know.
I wish I had the articles in
I
front
think-
of me, but I have.
I heard
seen
it
that.
on a podcast.
I think he
didn't-
probably wanted
Oh
Woods
shit!
to.
If only we had Google.
I think he probably wanted Woods
What the fuck's
to
Google?
publicly disavow it, maybe.
The fuck's the internet?
Maybe on his podcast or something to just
I
say,
mean, so
hey,
what do you do? Like, how does that work? Like, you
just say
start-
we oppose white nationalism and the alt-right, I guess. I don't know that he cared whether he actually signed some online petition or not.
I mean, all right. This might be something we need to fact check. I'll grant you that.
Yeah,
I'll grant you
we
that.
need fact check.
And Woods isn't even
But
part
then,
of the
but then
Libertarian
that tweet
Party.
is ridiculous, though. The tweet
Wood-
is ridiculous.
Woods isn't part of the Libertarian Party. The LP is its own institution, and
Well, yes.
Sarwark is more. As long as Sarwark says, "Hey, we are not the alt-right. We're not white nationalists." That, in some regard, he's speaking for the party there.
Yeah. So
Why does he need Woods to sign on when Woods is not even part of his?
right.
He's not part of the LP.
Right.
And a lot, and it's funny, the conflict, sometimes the ANCAPs and the Mises guys are going, hey, the LP is misrepresenting libertarianism, you're making us look bad, Gary's making us look bad, and other times it goes the other way, where the LP is going, hey, the Mises Institute is making us look bad, you guys are, this is actually going the other way, so it's just interesting that the two groups are fighting.
It's just like really unself-aware. I feel like
This is inside baseball here. This is
really
see.
in-depth.
This is
But
it
then
is.
if
You don't follow
publicly
this.
come out against it. Like you're basically like forcing yourself back into the dark corner instead of like being a more public image, because those guys are making themselves a public image. Those guys are like taking the name, libertarian or whatever, and then like smutting it in the dirt. But then you're just like, well, we're not gonna say anything about it. So it's like they're just like, you're just like kind of letting them go run wild while you stick to like your purity and your ideology, and you're just
Yeah, but then you're also just feeding this hysteria about like, oh, the Nazis
You're
are
not
taking over.
feeding
Nazis
that.
are taking over everything.
no,
when
you're
it's like,
showing that there's someone in the Libertarian Party who doesn't agree with it.
Dude, you need to respect Jared, dude. His people survived a Holocaust.
Yeah.
Seriously, dude. He's talking about Nazis here, dude.
yeah, well, I mean,
I'm talking about-
Always
look,
the
dude, like-
Nazis. We always talk about the
I'm talking about
Nazis.
Tom Woods.
Ryan, are you in Antifa, or have you participated with Antifa?
I guess I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, have you ever gone
have
to
you ever
like
gone
a
to a rally?
A rally?
Have you ever?
Antifa rally,
Are you a LARPer?
Well, no.
I was just curious. I mean,
I don't think they're illegitimate, if that's like what you're trying to like get out.
no, I was just
He was-
curious if
no,
you'd
he's just
ever
asking.
ever gone to an event.
No, I haven't gone to the events. No. All right.
I saw them. I saw them at the inauguration.
All right, we've been going for a while.
Yeah, dude, I need to.
What do you want to do?
We should.
You think we should wrap it up?
Oh yeah, fuck Hillary Clinton's new book.
Yeah, we can just.
Yeah, we saw like 2 more.
Yeah, we.
No, that last one we already talked about.
got.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
fuck
she-
Hillary Clinton's new book.
Yeah.
Well,
fuck
did you
that
hear
shit.
Amazon was deleting all the 1-star reviews? After everyone who left a 1-star review, they were just deleting it left and right.
Yeah.
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 But I guess I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? Do you think that they should? I mean, like,
Well, I mean, to be fair, they were probably
their
just like
property
trolls that were leaving
yeah,
one-star
people
reviews.
probably people who didn't actually read.
I mean,
the
if they're
blog.
verified, then that's fucked up. But
There's
if they're
just
just
some
random
like,
shit, then
in every excerpt,
whatever.
I would not spend $1 in the book, and I won't spend any time reading it. But the excerpts I have read are just so cringeworthy.
Yeah,
Like,
I just hear it's very self-serving. It's
Oh.
very everyone else is to blame for me losing.
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
indulgent,
You
so
know.
self-indulgent.
No, like, taking responsibility for your own.
Took 0. Yeah, she
Yeah.
blamed everyone else. Blamed women. Blamed Trump. Blamed everybody.
And she
Yeah.
said that,
Everybody but her.
and she said that the moral of the book 1984 was to trust government.
Wait, she said that?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. That was
yes.
the
That
thing.
was the
No
moral
way.
that she,
That
that she
was
got
the
out of
thing.
1984.
Dude, I gotta look. Send me a
Google
fucking.
it right now. Google it right now. Oh, that quote.
That's
And
crazy.
Somebody Google that shit.
It's
All right.
insanity.
But
That
in the
can't be
meantime,
right.
let's
So-
get the fuck
I'm
out of here.
telling you.
All right.
Tell 'em.
So until next time, we have shirts over at libertariancountry.com. If you type in the code PRL or the code PRL Podcast, you will receive a discount on various libertarian shirts. We got Punk Rock Libertarian shirts, Daily Liberator shirts, and such. And we're also always accepting articles over at thedailyliberator.com. So if you have something libertarian to say, we provided a podium for you to say it. And until next time, live free.
Or die.
I like that die.